Hey everyone, welcome to Retaliatory Strike. Today we have a game between Ryan running Infernals and Paul running Grymkin.
Hey, I'm Paul. I'll be running 50 points of Grymkin in theme in Dark Menagerie. I'm running 50 points with Child 1 as my Warcaster. For the battle group, we've got a Cage Rager, a Clockatrice, a Gorehound, a Rattler, and a Skin and Moans with a Baron Tonguelick as my attachment. For solos, I have 2 Gremlin Swarms, Lady Rose, and the Wastelander. And I've got a Death Knell following up.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. Today I have a 50-point Dark Legacy list in Infernals. For my caster, I have Zaateroth with 2 Soul Stalkers to start. I have, for solos, Alain Runewood, Hermit of Henge, Nicia, the Hound of the Abyss, and 3 Wretches. 2 Umbral Guardians and Valin Hauke. Other than that, I have a minimum mute Cultist Band and an Infernal Gate. The idea behind bringing the Soul Stalkers over Tormentors is their higher defense value meshes a little bit better with Zaateroth's feat, where being able to place myself 3 inches away is a lot easier to do with a higher defense, and I can always summon in Tormentors later in the game as well, which is great. Deployment. So I won roll off and chose to go second. For terrain on the board, in the top right hand and middle of the board there, we have 2 green blobs of forest. In the bottom middle, we have a brown blob of rough terrain. Bottom right, we have a blue blob of water, the 2 houses that you can see, and then that blue wall in the top zone there, and then into Grymkin's deployment.
So since I'm going first, I can't deploy in response to Ryan. I'm centering the child in the center of the table and deploying around her. I've deployed a Cage Rager and a Clockatrice on the left flank there to fight into that, and the Skin and Moans and the Gorehound on the right flank. I've placed the Wastelander on the left flank as well to hopefully ward off some incoming fire, and I placed Lady Rose and Baron Tonguelick more or less in the center behind as well, so they can move out to either side of the map and hand out buffs and abuses as need be. The Death Knell is going behind the Skin Moans to support it with additional corpses and that sweet plus armor aura. And on the left and rightmost flank of my army, the proxied in Gremlin Swarms will be ready to go and contest objectives or just generally be annoying as they would be.
For my deployment, I set up one of the Umbral Guardians on the board because there's not a lot of shooting in his list, so I figured keep one in reserve and put one on the board. Other than that, I put Zaateroth in the middle, and I am putting all the solos around her for the most part. And then I have a Soul Stalker on either side to go up the board. And then I choose to put the Infernal Gate on the bottom part of the board there, and Nicia advanced deployed up near the top there. And then I'm digging around in my bag because I forgot to grab Valin Hauke, and he gets deployed in next to Zaateroth.
Grymkin, turn 1. So I activate the child, I put up a tantrum for 2, and then I start handing out abuses to my war beast. I abuse the Skin and Moans, do some damage to it. I abuse the Gorehound, do some more damage to it. Then I spend 1 Fury to heal up a point of damage there. And after I'm done abusing the rest of my beasts, I advance 6 inches up and leave the child Fury empty. Following that, I run up my 2 Gremlin Swarms on either side of the table to be able to contest points and generally be annoying, staying out of the shooting range of the gate. After that, I run up my Cage Rager, it's 8 inches. I move Baron Tonguelick up to hand out another abuse on the Clockatrice there, and do some more damage. And then I run up Lady Rose to be in position to support next turn. I run the Rattler up to the other side of the map there to be able to fight into whatever's coming up there next turn, and I run the Clockatrice up to be with the Cage Rager, potentially to push out next turn and do some damage to either the gate or anything else that presents a target. Skin Moans runs up to be able to threaten that area next turn, fight into whatever he brings in. And just measuring out distance for the dog there, take advantage of his fast speed and his ability to get into annoying places to maybe deliver wailing into his battle group if need be. I run the Wastelander up there, staying out of the range of the gate, but positioned to support the child.
Infernals, turn 1. So first thing that I did was I rolled for souls on my gate. I got 3 souls, so it's starting out good. I'm looking to see if there's anything that I can shoot at. Nothing in range. So I decide I'm going to try to drift onto the Wastelander, and then realize that if I auto miss, he just deflects it back, so I shoot at the clock instead. I roll a 6 for direction and a 6 for distance, which pretty much puts it on top of the Wastelander, so it worked out pretty much perfect for me. I boost damage, and I do exactly 5 points of damage to him to kill him, so kind of a curse of a brand new model. First time on the table, it's got to get blown up turn 1. So I'm going to try to do the same thing and drift onto the Gremlin Swarm at the bottom there, and I miss. And it doesn't deviate onto him, so I use my last soul to move the Soul Stalker up 2 inches. After that, I'm deciding what to do with my turn here, all the stuff that Zaateroth wants to do, so I plan it out, and I am about to do her activation, but decide to run up a Wretch instead to summon on. So I move Zaateroth, summon a Desolator there, and then she also put up Rites of Torment at that point, and then the Desolator used his movement to walk behind the cloud, and the Cultist Band walked up and fueled him up. I had a Wretch go up base to base with Zaateroth and give them her stealth, and then I had Valin Hauke go up base to base with the Wretch as well, and also Runewood, and the Hermit hung up behind Zaateroth and gave out some essence, so she was camping a little bit more. I'm looking at the threat ranges of the Clockatrice here, and I'm wanting to figure out where to put the bottom Soul Stalker, so I decide to move up just a little bit and stay out of threat range there. And then I use Nicia to walk up and take a shot at the Gorehound. I hit and do 10 points of damage, which is good. And then she repos, and then I have an Umbral Guardian run up in front of her to defend her, and a Soul Stalker to follow up, and then the bottom Wretch to up behind the other Soul Stalker.
Grymkin, turn 2. So I start my turn by handing out Pathfinder off the objective to the Rattler. I look to heal the dog for its aspect points, but to do that later. I move forward the Gremlin Swarms with Apparition, get that 2-inch placement, and I upkeep a spell for free, Tantrum through Baron Tonguelick. I take all Fury off the table there. I go to heal the dog. Unfortunately, I should do that on my turn, or when I activate the child, and not now. So I put the Fury back. It's for a later part of the activation. And there's a bit of rules discussion here going on about some Infernal models, as a lot of them are things I haven't seen yet or have had some issues with prior. And then I start measuring out threat ranges to see what I can send at the Umbral Guardian over there. I'm hoping to use the dog to pull it in closer, or potentially kill it if I get lucky. Unfortunately, the dog is out of abuse range, which cripples its damage a little bit, making it rather unlikely that it'll be able to do the job on its own. There, I start looking at assault sprays into the Wretch. I'd like to be able to take out that model if possible, as it's integral to Infernal plans. I activate Baron Tonguelick to abuse the Clockatrice there, both for the extra speed and for the free charges. And then I start looking at possible charge lanes to get a good assault spray going there. Then I run into the issue of charging right on my control range for next turn, so I'm forced to start thinking about moving the child up to fully support my beasties. I'm looking there to see what I can abuse, and I find that I'm completely out of position to do anything except arc some abuses and wailing through the Cage Rager arc node. So I place Wailing up on the Clockatrice to hopefully be an issue for Ryan next turn. And following that, I advance the child into where she needs to be for control range. Measuring out there, it looks like I can actually stay out of direct fire of the gate, so I suck back about half an inch to avoid direct shots. And then it's time for the assault spray. So I'm working on a charge line there with that nice 2-inch reach. Allows for a pretty solid lane there. I should be able to spray most of what I want. Get the spray centered, and I go for a attack roll on the snake there. I don't boost for it, and I miss. I boost the roll to hit the Wretch. An Umbral Guardian pops out to take a shot, so I boost the damage roll on the Umbral Guardian. And just so happens that the boosted shot is enough to kill it to the box. This leaves me with 1 extra Fury I can use on the Clockatrice, so I spend that to put its Animus up, making it a fairly annoying piece to deal with. Hopefully making it a bit difficult to fully position next turn there. I run up the Gremlin Swarm, forgetting that the gate has a bunch of special rules that ignore its special defensive rules, meaning it's fairly vulnerable there next turn. I run the Cage Rager, it's 8, to allow for better counter punches next turn, potentially protect the child a bit, and allow it to move to both sides of the map if need be. There I'm starting to look at what I can actually send at the Umbral Guardian. It turns out the Rattler is out of range even if I use the 2-inch drag on the Gorehound's attack. So I've got to change my plans up a bit on the fly there. I run a Gremlin Swarm in to eat the defensive strike, as I'm not comfortable with the dog or the Gorehound taking it in its current damaged state. And send the Gorehound there for a free charge. I don't boost the first hit, but I hit anyways. I pull it in, and damage is boosted. However, I don't do anything. It's a fairly lousy roll. I buy another attack and boost, and sadly do not do enough damage to take the Guardian out. I push up the Skin and Moans to collect a corpse and kill that Guardian, hoping that after I move the Rattler in there and move up the Death Knell with its aura, I'll be able to have enough of a defensive block in place to absorb most of the counterpunch and have some models in there ready to fight next turn. So the Rattler places its Animus and then charges and is in position to countercharge hopefully next turn to make any sort of engagements there a bit more tricky, and the Death Knell moves up to support with the aura.
Infernals, turn 2. So first thing I do is I roll souls on the gate, and I get 2 souls. After that, I sacrifice cultists and upkeep Rites of Torment. So Zaateroth is sitting on 6 essence this turn. And then I start measuring out everything that I'm wanting to do here for that. So I'm looking and trying to decide if Nicia can charge the Gorehound and kill it herself. And I think, like, on good dice, not just above average dice, I think she can probably kill him. So I'm trying to see if I can walk and get into his back arc, or if there's a way to make it better. I can't, so I just charge him. In his front arc, I hit the charge attack, roll a bucket of dice, don't kill him. Hit the second attack, roll a bucket, the dice, and it's a 5-1-1, so I leave him alive. So I do my 3-inch repo forward, and I am still engaged by the Skin and Moans at that point, and it's relevant because the Skin and Moans is breaking line of sight to the Rattler, so he can't countercharge. After that, I have Runewood aim and shoot at the dog, so he hits and kills them, and then I realize that he's out of curse range where he is, so he doesn't end up cursing anyone. So I move up the Desolator to where he's in range of the Skin and Moans, and then I walk a Wretch over, and I ancillary attack at the Skin and Moans. I hit, and I don't believe I do any damage, but he's now -2 armor and corroded, which is good. After that, I am going with Zaateroth. So she will put up Scything Touch onto the top Soul Stalker there, and then feet as well. So that's my feet token down in the bottom corner there. So there's Scything Touch, and then I use 3 to summon a Tormentor on the Wretch that used Ancillary Attack. So now I have a Tormentor there. And she is going to move up and take some shots at the Rattler. So I hit my first one, and I roll boxcars for damage. And then I reload with my last essence, and I shoot again. And I hit again, and I roll 6/5 for damage. So for the Arcana that he chose, it was Sacrifice, Wrath, and Ruin. And because of Sacrifice, and I've put in so much damage, I need to kill the Rattler before the Skin and Moans at this point. So I send in my Soul Stalker, who charges, and I boost chance to hit with my Constrict first. I hit and kill him, which is good. And then I do my Bite attack into the Skin and Moans, buy into the Skin and Moans, and boost, I believe. And I leave him there on 1 essence, so you can tithe this turn. The Skin and Moans is pretty beat up with that 4-point armor swing, so I decide I'm going to send in Valin Hauke. He's a really important solo, but I find he can actually do quite a bit of work in melee himself. So he charges in, he hits the charge attack, and he rolls a 1/1/2 for damage. So he just repos out of the way so something else can get in there to kill that Skin and Moans. So I was originally planning on the Desolator going in to help kill that Clockatrice, which isn't going to happen now. So he charges the Skin and Moans. So his assault attack misses. His charge attack, I boost to hit, hits, and I crank in a bunch of damage. I boost to hit my second initial. I hit and I boost damage, and that ends up finishing him off. Notably, I should have gotten some souls from this because of the Soul Stalker there, but we missed that. And then I use my Rites of Torment on the Soul Stalker to move it up into a less advantageous spot for him. I'm hoping to gum up any counterpunch into those models there. After that, I use my Gate. I shoot at the Gremlin Swarm. I boost chance to hit, kill it, and then I use the soul to reload and shoot at the clock, and I boost chance to hit. And I think I get a couple points of damage. And then the Soul Stalker charges in, so I boost chance to hit on the Constrict. I hit, get some damage in, and then I do a Bite attack and I boost damage, and I roll a 5/5/6, which cripples him, and he stutter steps away from me. After that, I am planning on getting my Wretch in there, but then with Wailing, I can't actually do my Fly's Kiss spell at it, so he just captures that flag, so I'm going to score 2 points this turn. After that, I have my Cultist Band fuel up the Tormentor, and then I walk up the Hermit, and he's still out of range to give essence there, so he just gives Zaateroth 1, so she's sitting on 1, and then the Tormentor moves up for counter charge.
Grymkin, turn 3. So this is my Wrath turn. I used Wrath last turn after being presented no good sacrifice opportunities. So the child's at 8 Fury. I vacuum up all Fury off the board. I upkeep my Tantrum for free through Tonguelick, and I let Wailing drop off, as it's probably not going to be around much longer along with the clock. I start looking at the possibility of using the Death Knell to clear a few models, or to clear some solos there, hopefully, as I'm kind of running low on usable models, and I'm fairly behind on scenario. Also, I'm fairly out of position to be able to contest effectively on both sides of the board, so unless I do something drastic there, I'm just going to lose on scenario before I have a chance to lose on army. So there's a bit of discussion there on rules, charge lands, all that sort of stuff. I don't tend to use the Death Knell in combat a lot, and it's a fairly new model in my army, so I have to refresh myself on a bit of stuff there. Also, I made a ordering mistake there. I wanted to hand off some corpses to the Cage Rager as the Death Knell is riding on, I believe, 4 or 5 right now. So if things went according to plan, it would have overcapped. I believe Ryan graciously lets me do that at a later point, since it wouldn't actually have affected the state of the game at the moment. Further discussions on charging the Death Knell there. It's also a large base, and charging large bases tends to be annoying. I'm trying to figure out a good charge lane where I can do the maximum amount of damage and push it up as far as possible to give me a solid body to at least contest that, or just be a damage sink for my other models. But it's go time. The child charges in on her Wrath turn, Fury 8. She's a fairly good killer. And I start boosting to hit. And I hit the first attack. It's boosted. I do a fairly decent bit of damage there. Get my second initial off. Boost the hit there. I buy a third initial there. I choose not to boost to hit. That turns to be a colossal mistake. Even at mat 8 feet turn was just too much there, and I give Ryan a free placement. I spend my last 4 Fury to lob a Force Hammer into one of his undamaged horrors, trying to get maybe get some push range there to potentially move him out of optimal combat range for next turn, since the child's going to be fairly exposed right now. Unfortunately, he misses it well, and he just gets another free place. So I move Tonguelick up to abuse the Cage Rager, as that's going to be my primary combat piece for this turn. I move Lady Rose up to just add another warm body to contest that point there, and I place the +2 strength buff on the Cage Rager as well, just to make sure whatever he's going to kill this turn is actually going to be frickin' dead. And now we're back to trying to charge the Death Knell in for its time in the spotlight. And it doesn't get any faster here. But I finally find a lane that I'd like. Here's the point where I realize, oops, I'd really like to place those corpses on the Cage Rager. That happens. And the Death Knell lands in there. I'd also like to point out that the child left his Infernal model there,
Soul Stalker
on 1 box when she missed and failed to kill with that attack there. So the Death Knell is capable of taking it out even with its fairly lackluster combat capabilities. Fortunately, it hits. If it hadn't, and he got another free placement, I don't know what I would have done there. Now I'm looking at what else I can do with my last 2 remaining heavies. Cage Rager's spooled up and ready to crush whatever it can reach. It has Pathfinder off the objective, allowing me to clear that forest. I decide to maneuver the clock around first. Originally, I looked to see if I could spray into his back line and take out some cultists or other models. Hopefully do some essence, give him some headaches with essence management for next turn, but I realized that A, the game probably won't go long enough for that to matter, and B, I really need that heavy to put some damage in. Anyways, I decided to do the Cage Rager first, as his turn's fairly simple. Charge into the one horror I can see. I start boosting to hit, as mat 6 is questionable at best of times, and definitely not enough under feet turn there, and if anything gets placed out of damage range, it's basically over. Fortunately, the Cage Rager at power strength 21 is on a charge is more than enough to finish off the horror there. And I start directing my other attacks into the other one I can reach. I choose to beat back here to fix my facing a little bit, and I have 1 last Fury. As it is Wrath turn, I choose to buy an attack. This was a mistake. I should have boosted a damage roll earlier instead, as all that does is give Ryan another free placement, making him have an easier time charging in on the child next turn. So I move to attack with my Clockatrice. I get the charge off. I go for an assault spray. I'm relying on this -5 or the the slow effect off the spray to allow me to hit the rest of my initials and bot attacks. Unfortunately, despite boosting the spray, I rolled piss poor. I think it was 2 1s on the 2 or something like that. I missed the spray. The free placement happens, and the clock is down for that turn. I put up the Animus at the end, as I have nothing else to do.
Infernals, turn 3. So first thing I do is I sacrifice a cultist, go back up to 7. I upkeep Rites of Torment, and I roll up souls for the gate. I get 1 soul, which is not the best. And then I am measuring out to see what my models can get to. So it's 3-0 because he didn't end up contesting that flag with the Clockatrice. So I need to score 2 points. I'm looking, and I can definitely get Soul Stalker to the objective to kill that, and then end my turn and score on that flag to win by scenario. So I have that in my back pocket, but I'm deciding that I want to try to kill the child, which sometimes isn't the greatest idea. So I use Zaateroth to hand out 3 essence to the Desolator and 1 essence to the Soul Stalker, and then I use the Hermit to walk up and do his essence handing out move outside of 3 of the Cage Rager, so he can't Arcane Vortex it, and hands out to top up the Desolator. I was kind of hoping that I would bait out his Ruin so I could get some more spells out there, but it doesn't work, so I repo the Hermit into the way of the Cage Rager just in case. I then charge the Cage Rager with Alain Runewood, so I can get Curse onto the child for +2 to hit on my horrors. So he curses the child, he charges, hits the Cage Rager, and doesn't break armor, but he's still grievously wounded just in case. After that, I have the Zaateroth go up. She attempts to put out Scything Touch onto the Desolator, which he Arcane Vortexes from the Cage Rager, and then she takes 2 shots at the child and doesn't end up doing any damage. So I have the gate go. She is just within 12, so I shoot, I miss, I reload, shoot, I hit, and then I do 1 point of damage, which is probably the worst thing to do, because it just buffs her, and then I charge in the Desolator. I boost to hit. No, I just roll the to hit on the spray hit and do a little bit of damage. I also hit the objective and do a little bit of damage to that, and then I'm hitting with my charge attack. So I hit there and do some damage, and then he gets to do a retaliatory strike. So he doesn't end up smiting me away, at least, so I have that going for me. Chips in some damage, but it's all good for me. So I do my next initial, I boost damage, buy an attack, boost damage, I believe, and then kill him to the box. Afterthoughts. So for afterthoughts for this game, other than the shithouse luck of me rolling 2 6s for deviation and killing the Wastelander, is there anything else that you think that you could have done better this game, or that you had thought of after the fact where you said it would have gone a lot better for me if I had done this?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on my initial deployment. I feel I deployed a bit too thin across the board, and I shouldn't have tried to contest Infernals on 2 sides of the map at the same time. For that regard, I should have had the Cage Rager far closer to the child. If anything, the Clockatrice should have been able to work on that side a bit more on its own. I also feel that the way this game went, I feel that the Wastelander kind of isn't the best thing to run here. I would have been far better served with Krabbits for shield guards that aren't going to be taken out by a random blast roll, worst case scenario. Even if I had been able to use them as a combat model, I still feel that Krabbits as shield guards would have been a far more key piece into your shooting.
And then possibly be able to trigger sacrifice off of it too as well.
Well, that's the other thing. For deployments as well, I feel that overall I should have centered my army a bit more. Allowed more of my forces to fight under the Death Knell's armor bonus, and I had more. If I had the Cage Rager able to support more models, I would have been able to perhaps Arcane Vortex a few more key abilities or something like that, or at least have been able to use those corpses for something more useful than they had been.
Yeah, so you think bricking up probably would have been a better choice than...
Yes.
Yeah, overall I think like you did really good. Like a couple mistakes here and there, like not trying to buy an additional attack onto the Desolator instead of boosting damage into it, like needing 8s to hit is kind of rough for that with the place effect, but you killed a Tormentor and a Soul Stalker, and like you did quite a bit of work to my army, but like it's your second game ever into Infernal, so it's definitely a learning curve into playing against them for sure.
Absolutely. A lot of the Infernal models do have a lot of special rules that can be hard to keep track of, and generally I'm more familiar with playing 35-point games still, since I am fairly new to this game series.
Yeah.
So even things like the Death Knell, that's I believe my second game with the Death Knell, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how aggressively I can position it to use its various auras and support abilities without it just being shot or beaten off the board way too early. Because it is a very, very solid piece, but it's also very large, kind of hard to maneuver.
Yeah, and then the only other thing that I think you wanted to mention was not using the Gorehound's Prowl ability, because you had assumed that my whole army had Eyeless Sight, but...
So I'm actually kind of mad about that there. I somehow forgot the gate had Eyeless Sight, and I assumed Nicia and the other solos on that side of the map did have Eyeless Sight. I could have activated Prowl by hiding the doggo of the Gorehound in the forest, but since I thought I couldn't take advantage of that, I figured I'd just push it out as far as I could for a better chance to maybe put Wailing on it later and push it somewhere annoying, or just, possibly snipe a solo or just drag something into range of something else later, set up for a better charge or whatnot. That turned out to obviously be a mistake. I'm kind of torn about one of my Gremlin Swarms eating the defensive strike there. I still feel that was a fairly decent thing to do if I wanted to use the dog at all, because I was not confident it could be combat effective after eating that defensive strike.
I know for that one I was considering not defensive striking your Gremlin Swarm, and then when you send the dog in, hopefully being able to cripple it at least, so then it can't do anything. But I have so much trouble with Gremlin Swarms with all their rules in all my other factions that I was like, I'm going to kill this model dead if I can. So I went for it. I think in the long run, like, it was the correct thing to do, because your dog was your Gorehound was fairly crippled, that to bait out that defensive strike on top of before sending it in.
My other thought there was, even if you didn't go for the defensive strike on the Gremlin Swarm, well, at least then I'd have the -1 mat from annoyance to bring my dog up to effective def 15, hopefully make it a bit harder to hit.
Yeah, then I would need 8s to hit, so I was probably fairly lucky that I hit the 7 onto the Gremlin Swarm, and so...
Yeah, the second Gremlin Swarm on the left side of the map, where it got eaten by an Eyeless Sight, gate shot there, that was absolutely a mistake. I should have remembered to have that rule. If nothing else, I probably should have been able to run it into activation range of the gate, giving you perhaps some activation order issues. But I don't think I ever would have been able to do anything with that model except potentially contest, which I probably should have kept it in reserve for. Or maybe gotten a cheeky advance towards the gate and gotten a sabotage off or something like that. But obviously that's less of a juicy target than a Jack would have been, given that most of the mischief effects don't actually do much to the gate.
Yeah. Other than that, I think it was like a really good match. If you have any last parting thoughts.
Don't be like me and send a Skin and Moans to finish off an Umbral Guardian.
in charge range of the rest of the army.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought the Rattler might have been able to do something with its countercharge there, yes, but unfortunately it just ate a lot of gunfire there, and it was not in a good place.
Having a bit of experience with countercharge playing Infernals, I know how to play around it a little bit at least, but yeah, other than that, like, it was still a good game, I think. Like,
absolutely. I had a blast. I definitely learned a lot, and learned I had to keep a lot more things in mind when playing against Infernals. It's always a learning experience.
Yeah. Other than that, thanks for watching. This has been Retaliatory Strike.